I have bought $50 million worth of real estate without using any of my own money. I started in 2014, and right now I own over 150 single-family rentals, 6 apartment complexes, 3 self-storage facilities, and a hotel, all using none of my own money. So what I want to do in this video is go over the BRRRR method, but I want to go over it 2 separate ways. I talk about it all the time because this one method has done all of that for me. And if I didn't tell you earlier, I'm from the middle class. I didn't like inherit money or inherit an entrepreneurial household. It was just a normal childhood, normal upbringing, but I've been able to do some pretty cool things because I took a method that everybody knows, or a lot of people know, the BRRRR method, and I changed it and tweaked it and applied it to all asset classes. So I want to go over a BRRRR deal, explain this method to you with a single family rental. Then I'm going to show you how I use the same method and use it on apartment complexes and self-storage facilities because it's slightly different. One happens in 6 months, one happens in 5 years, so I'm going to explain the differences now. So no matter what asset class you want to get into, single families and then graduate into multis or go straight to multis, this video's for you. Hit that damn like button. All right, so the method is the BRRRR method. It stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and systemize. Obviously, if you want to grow and scale, you have to systemize. There are 2 things you need to get this method going. That's it. You need a distressed house. We're going to represent with a sad face, and you need an initial lending source. Now, we're not going to talk about how to define distressed houses or how to find lending sources. I'll shoot you to a video on those at the end, but for now, just assume you found a distressed property. It's going to take you a while to find it, so relax. Don't get all hyped up like, oh my gosh, I don't have one right now. And then assume you have a private money lender, somebody that's willing to lend you money to buy and fix up the property. Now, don't worry, they're getting their money back plus interest. You're not going to give it to them, but somebody else is going to. So don't worry, they're not just giving you money. You're not a charity case. You're, in fact, giving them the best return on investment that they're ever going to make. All right, so we have a distressed property. We have an initial private lender. Let's make this method work. The initial buy step, you have to get the property under contract to purchase. So let's say you can buy a distressed house for $150,000 and it needs $40,000 in repairs. So what you do is you borrow $190,000 to buy and repair, see the smiley face now, a distressed property. Private lender gave you 190 grand. You wrote a check to the title company for 150 grand. Then over the next 3 or 4 months, you write $40,000 worth of checks to suppliers and contractors to do the work for you. Boom, you have a freshly fixed up house. At this point, before you pay anybody back, you get the property rented. You start to make it a cash producing asset. You start to fill this thing with cash and have it bringing in cash every single month. Now, the beauty of today's market is, depending on the location of your property and depending on what you want to do, you can rent it out on a short-term basis, Airbnb, VRBO. You'd be surprised at where you could actually make that work and how much more cash flow you get than a normal rental. So that's an option if it applies. Another option, which applies almost anywhere, is a midterm rental. You rent out properties on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 month basis to traveling nurses or corporate leases or digital nomads. You're able to get double the rent you get on a long-term rental, which allows you to cash flow even more. So this is a great option to cash flow when maybe you wouldn't cash flow long-term because of interest rates. And then the last option is a long-term rent. This is a 12 or 24 month lease, either to Section 8 or even to market rent. Either way, one of those options will probably work, and it's a beautiful thing that we have those options now, okay? So we bought it, we repaired it, we rented it, one of those ways. The next is the refinance method, okay? This is where you take the property that's rented and fixed up to a long-term lender. Small local bank, DSCR lender, either one works. And as a bonus at the end, I'm gonna introduce you to the FasterFreedom Fusion Funding Program. Lots of F's there, I get it. But that's a program where I fund 100% of my students' deals. It's mixing together a few different programs, hence the fusion part of it, but it is a creative way to fund all your deals with none of your own money. But let's go back to this. All right, on this refinance, you're gonna go to a small local bank or a national DSCR lender and get a 20 to 30 year mortgage. So let's say this property that you bought at a discount and added value and created equity through the rehab process is worth $250K. you get an 80% loan, which in reality means they're just handing you a check for 80% of that, which is $200K. So you take the $200,000 loan that you get from a small local bank or from a DSCR lender, and you pay back your initial private lender their $190 plus $10K in interest. He's happy because he made $10,000 in a few months without having to do anything. So he's paid back, he's good, everything's fine. Now, you do owe the bank or DSCR lender $200,000, but remember you're collecting rent. And if you ran your numbers properly, that rent will cover the mortgage payment plus all owning expenses, and boom, you now own a rental house, which again, I've done this over 150 times using none of your own money. Now, not every house you run across is gonna meet this criteria, but houses that do, this is what you do to buy them and own them using none of your own money. You're just mixing around other people's money. Basically, you're taking private lenders' money to buy and fix it up, taking a bank to pay back the private lender, and then you're taking rent to pay back the bank. And at the end of the day, you own the asset. And if you really want to grow and mess with this, check out the free training in this description where I show you the systems and process to actually scale this, but that's not for this video. We're trying to make it a little more entertaining and not just educational. All right, now let's talk about this method with an apartment complex or a self-storage facility. This is a bigger commercial style type asset. Now, the reason this is different is because with houses, the ARV and what the house is worth after is based on the market value, and it's something you can do quickly. This is kind of an extended BRRRR is what I've been calling it, but this is what you're gonna use for anything that's either an apartment complex that has 5 units or more, up to as many as you want, maybe a retail strip center, or even a self-storage facility or a hotel, whatever commercial asset you want to buy that produces income as a commercial asset and is valued on the cap rate, this is how you do it. Now, I've done this 6 times. I'm going to keep the math simple on this one. Let's walk through what it is. So for this one, what you need is you need an underperforming or a distressed commercial asset. How do we want to draw this? Let's kind of draw that. Maybe that's what an apartment complex looks like with all the doors. Is that an apartment complex for you? All right, so that's what you need. You need a kind of underperforming, whether it be because it's distressed or because it's mom and pop managed and rents are way low, asset. And then on top of that, you again need that initial private lender. So again, lots of work to find these 2 things, I get it. But let's say that you found those 2 things, or you eventually will. Here's what you do to execute it and buy it using none of your own money. So the purchase, the buy side is going to be a little bit different, okay? This isn't gonna look as pretty as the other one, but it's still kind of cool. So what you get on the buy side, let's say you can buy this property, this apartment complex for $1 million. All right, so you can buy it for $1 million, and it either needs some repairs or some repositioning. See, so you need to add value, and you can buy an apartment complex, a 24 unit, and rehab every unit. It's gonna take a lot of time and a lot of money. Most of the time, that's probably not the best way for you to do it. If you wanna buy that 24 unit, what you're probably gonna do is slightly, increase the value by making maybe the common grounds a little bit nicer and some new signage and cleaning it up and managing it better. And then after that, maybe raising rents a little bit as you do those things and maybe doing a little bit of repair. So it's kind of a rehab / reposition, and you're gonna need a little bit of money for that. So let's say you need maybe $200,000 for that, okay? All right, let's talk about how we're gonna do this now on the initial purchase. You're going to use a private lender and a small local bank for the initial purchase, unlike the BRRRR method with houses where you only use a private lender. So what you need is you're gonna get an 80% loan from a small local bank. So 80% of the purchase price, which is $1 million from a small local bank. So the 80% actual loan you're gonna get is gonna be an $800,000 loan for the initial purchase. Now, you need the other $200,000 or 20% down, plus the $200,000 you're gonna repair the property with from a private lender. So for this purposes, you would be getting an $800,000 loan from a bank, and then you'd be getting a 20% down plus the $200,000 in repairs, a $400,000 loan from a private lender. Now, a private lender is probably not going to do this on their first deal with you, as you're probably thinking, who's going to give me the money on that? This is a private lender that you've done a few of these with and proven yourself and given them money and given them great returns. Now you're trying to give them a little longer term play. So let's say you bought it and you reposition it. Now the difference is this is like one of those SpongeBob things, 3 years later or 2 years later, whatever it is. But let's say 3 years later, over the next 3 years, what's gonna happen is you are going to use this $200K to increase the value by making it nicer so that you then can charge more for rent. And as you charge more for rent, the net income goes up of the property and the value of the property goes up. That's how apartment complexes or commercial buildings or whatever you're gonna buy for this is valued. It's not valued on the after repair value based on the comps like single family houses. This is based on how much net income you bring in. So over 3 years, we're increasing net income however you can. Charge more for rent. Make the tenants pay for internet if they're not already paying for internet. Or get more efficient with expenses. Do what we do. Manage it in-house and utilize technology to cut the expenses out. So if you increase the top line, make the tenants pay for something they're not paying for, and you decrease expenses, your net income goes way up, and that's when you get a higher value. So here's what you do. Let's say 3 years down the line, this property that you bought for $1 million, you have 1.2 in, appraises for 1.6 million. Now let's do some new math. What's 80% of 1.6? 80% of 1.6 is 1.28 million. And now what guess you'll have? You have that initial loan from the small local bank that was 800,000. Let's say that is paid down to 775K. That initial $800,000 loan from the bank has been paid down a little bit. So you subtract out the $775,000, then you subtract out the $400,000 that your private lender lent you. And let's do the math on that. That leaves you with $105,000 left over, assuming you did everything that I just showed you. Now that $105,000 is something that you can pocket as tax-free money, or more than likely you're going to want to give your private lender a return on their money, or you give a majority of that to them, or all of it. Regardless, let's say you give it all to them, they give you 400 grand, you probably paid them a little bit of cash flow every single month, not a ton, a little bit of cash flow every single month, and then 3 years later, you give them a check back for 500,000. They made $100,000 in 3 years on their $400,000 investment, and you gave them a little bit of cash flow. And guess what? Now you own an apartment complex that you bought, or a self-storage facility that you bought using none of your own money. So it's, again, as I told you earlier, a little bit messier, but it is a process. The keys here are going to be, make sure you're going to be financing 100% of cost. Make sure you're not financing 100% of the value. You need to make sure you get a property, an apartment complex, a commercial building, whatever, at a discount, and you're able to quickly increase the value so that your spread between what you're borrowing and what it's worth grows, so it can give you that equity that you can then tap into to pay everybody back. I hope that made sense. If it did and you're interested in learning more about this, make sure to check out I almost forgot the Fusion Funding Program. So what the Fusion Funding Program is, it's something that's available just to students. But what I do is I use FasterFreedom Capital, my hard money lending company, plus an unsecured business funding source to fund 100% of purchase and rehab. And then at that point, you either sell it and pay me back and keep the rest, or you go into my 30-year DSCR loan. We use FasterFreedom Capital for a 30-year fixed DSCR loan. So this is where we have students using the funding for the purchase and the rehab between these two sources, and then they refinance with me over 30 years at 6-something%, and they're cash flowing hundreds of dollars more a month than you would be going to a small local bank. So it's a really cool thing that my students have access to. If you want to learn more about that, again, check out the description. You're going to get the free training there. You're going to learn more about Freedom Capital there, and you also access some of my AI software. So check out that description. Share this video with a friend, and check out this video over here where I talk about how to find these mythical private lenders that everybody wants to find. See you on the next one.